Mr. Clarke-Samuel, you may remain seated. On the 8th of December 2025, at the plea in trial preparation hearing in this case, you pleaded guilty to dangerous driving and to causing death by dangerous driving. Those two matters on the indictment, counts 1 and 2, cover episodes of your driving the evening of the 18th of October 2005 between 11 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. when you drove from central London to Roding Lane South in Redbridge, and secondly when on Redbridge Lane you hit and killed Yubin Tamang as he was crossing the road. Counts 3 and 4 of the same indictment allege that at the time of causing the death of Yubin Tamang, you were driving whilst over the prescribed limit for alcohol, and lastly, after causing his death, you embarked on a further episode of dangerous driving as you made your way from the scene of the fatality to your home. On your behalf, a written basis of plea document was provided. That document is dated the 8th of December 2025. In that document, you set out that your guilty pleas to counts 1 and 2 were on the basis that you drank 3 glasses of brandy and coke whilst having a meal in central London. When you went to drive home, you claimed you saw 4 people in a Mercedes A-Class who you say looked suspicious and who you thought may pose a threat to you or your car. The basis of plea speaks of an incident some years before when you had been approached at gunpoint and your vehicle taken. You said that on the 18th of October 2025, you believed you were under threat and were being followed, and this led to your erratic and dangerous driving. It is also said this led to the sudden increase in speed before the collision, the subject of count 2. You then wanted to get home as quickly as possible as you thought you were still under threat. Once home, you said you consumed 6 to 7 shots of Chirok vodka mixed with ginger beer and had a cannabis cookie. You say you then dozed off before being woken by the police. At the police station, you say you told a legal representative that you had drunk vodka in the hour or two before your arrest, had consumed a cannabis cookie and signed a written document to that effect at the police station. You do not understand why police records show something different. You accepted that you may well have been over the drink-drive limit when you got into your car from that restaurant, but if so, it would not have been by much. At that stage, a timetable was set for matters in that basis of plea to be considered, along with further consideration of the evidence in support of counts 3 and 4. Having given time for inquiries to be made by your solicitors and by the Crown Prosecution Service to consider the account set out in that written basis of plea, I note that no vehicle can be seen on any available CCTV to follow your car. You said you had been at the Omi Lounge and that at no point can any car be seen to follow you as you have suggested. On your behalf, today it is said that you maintain that you believed you felt under threat, albeit it is accepted there is no independent evidence of that, and no evidence has been called on that issue on your behalf. Whilst I can accept what happened in 2017, having viewed the footage that has been collated, I do not find your belief to be one that mitigates this driving or the seriousness of it. Separately, I note evidence of the state of your car following the collision, which shows significant damage to the windscreen. An addendum basis of plea document was provided on the 2nd of March. In that document, you accepted that at the time of the collision with Yubin Tamang, your blood alcohol reading was 45 micrograms of alcohol per 100 millilitres of breath. The legal limit is 35 micrograms, and so you accept being over the limit for driving and by a significant margin. As you now accept the alcohol level and also that you failed to stop after the collision, it is not necessary for there to be a trial on counts 3 and 4, and so those counts will lie on the file, on the court file with the usual direction, not to be proceeded with further without the leave of this court or the Court of Appeal. Turning then to the events of Saturday the 18th of October. In the early evening, you drove into central London from your home in Woodford. You were driving your BMW M5, a high-performance vehicle. The journey took about an hour, and you arrived in the Bloomsbury area just after 8:30 p.m. As you were later to accept, whilst in central London, you consumed alcohol before then driving home. Your return journey started about 11 p.m. Much of that journey captured on CCTV. A chef, Nico Segara, was riding his motorcycle along Goode Street. As you drove past him, your car brushed his leg, causing him to stop and to put his foot to the ground. You did not stop. You drove on and drove through a red traffic light. When the lights changed to green, the motorcyclist followed your vehicle. When he did so, he observed you drive through 2 further sets of traffic lights at red. You turn left into Gower Street and then right into Torrington Place, again passing through a red traffic light. You then continued along Byng Place into Gordon Square, passing through yet another red light. As you drove into Tavistock Square, there was slow and stationary traffic. You then drive onto the pavement outside the Tavistock Hotel to pass that line of stationary vehicles that were waiting at a red traffic light. You then drive through yet another set of traffic lights at red and collide with a Mercedes car. You continue into Tavistock Place, stopped momentarily before then driving away. The motorcyclist, Mr. Segara, stopped to speak to the driver of the Mercedes, Mr. Ansari. He checked that he was uninjured and then continued to follow your car. When you stopped at a red light in Sidmouth Street, close to Gray's Inn Road, he took a photograph of the registration plate of your vehicle. Mr. Ansari was driving his car as a taxi that night and had a passenger. He was driving towards Holborn. He recalls travelling slowly in Tavistock Square at its junction with Gordon Square. He saw your car come towards him and having passed through a red traffic light. You tried to get across the road in front of Mr. Ansari but stopped. Mr. Ansari continued to drive forward. As he passed, you drove on and collided with the back of his car on the driver's side, close to the rear wheel, before then driving away at speed. Mr. Ansari called the police at 11 that evening, and he later took a video of the damage you had caused to his car. After this collision, you continued in the direction of your home in Woodford. Analysis of your mobile phone shows that you made 5 voice calls to the same number in that period. The calls are of various duration, up to 1 minute and 21 seconds. CCTV footage captures you driving, often at speed, between 11:21 and 11:27 p.m. At 11:21, you're on the Balls Pond Road, on the wrong side of that road, before turning left, continuing on Dalston Lane. A minute later, you drove around 2 cars travelling along Dalston Lane by moving onto the wrong side of the road. You passed 4 cyclists travelling in the opposite direction in that lane, causing 2 of those cyclists to swerve in order to avoid a collision. At 11:23, you overtook another car by moving onto the wrong side of the road. Later, as you're on Graham Road, you move again onto the wrong side of the road and drove through yet another set of traffic lights at red. At 11:24 p.m, you accelerate around a lorry, travelling along Morning Lane. Further along Morning Lane, at its junction with Ponsford Street, a car stopped at a red traffic light. You crossed yet again onto the wrong side of the road. At 11:25, still driving along Morning Lane, you crossed the junction at Well Street and moved onto the opposite lane, narrowly missing a car travelling in the opposite direction. By 11:30 p.m, CCTV shows you driving along Roding Lane South towards Redbridge Lane East. Redbridge Lane East runs between the North Circular Road at Redbridge and the A1400 Woodford Avenue. The road is in a residential area. It is a road with a single lane for traffic in each direction. The speed limit, 30 miles an hour. At the time of the incident, it was dark the road lit by streetlights on both sides. The road surface was dry. Yubin Tamang, a 20-year-old man from Nepal, a university student living in Burkhold Avenue, near to where he was killed, was walking along the pavement of Redbridge Lane East. He looked, checked the road was clear, before crossing the road. As he was crossing that road, he was hit by your car. You were driving at a speed significantly in excess of the speed limit. Yubin was catapulted into the air before crashing onto the roadway. He sustained catastrophic injuries. Camera footage shows the lead up to the impact and the point of impact itself. On the audio, the noise of the engine of your car can clearly be heard as it approached its speed. After impact, your rear brake lights can be seen, but you then drive on, leaving the scene without stopping. The footage of the impact shown in this court is simply shocking. Images of the state of your car show that it was then not in a fit state to be driven safely, but nonetheless you continue for another 8 miles, over some 15 minutes or so, to a location close to your home in Kings Avenue. You make another phone call just after the collision to the same number as those earlier calls, this one for 33 seconds. Of note, there is no call to the emergency services. It is also of note that you do not park outside your home, but a short distance away. You've been in the car on your own. The windscreen of the car had been shattered. I mentioned earlier the journey into central London was an hour. The journey home took half that time. After getting home, you're seen running and returning to the car half an hour later for some reason. Expert analysis of the event data recorder from your BMW shows that in the 5 seconds before the collision, the speed of your car went from 36 to 74 miles an hour, 67 miles an hour at the point of impact. And so at that point of impact with Yubin's body, you were driving at a speed more than double the speed limit then in force. Although you had left the scene where Yubin had been hit, other drivers stopped, attended to him, and sought to administer first aid. They called 999 and sought to give CPR. The helicopter emergency medical services team arrived and attended to him. He was taken to the Royal London Hospital. It was clear that he had sustained extensive and catastrophic injuries, multiple fractures, multiple organ damage, including damage to the brain. He was placed in the intensive care unit, but remained unresponsive, and his injuries were deemed to be unsurvivable. During the course of the 19th of October, his condition deteriorated, and he died just after 1 p.m. on the 20th of October. Turning next to victim impact. There are a number of victim impact statements. One is from Yubin's close friend, roommate and university classmate, Shashant Kahada. He speaks about the impact on him of loss of his close friend and the impact on his own education, relationships and family. He says that Yubin was like family to him. As he says in his statement, and I quote, "Yubin was only 20 years of age. He had dreams, ambitions and plans for his future. His loss has not only taken a life full of promise, but has permanently affected mine and my family's lives. The emotional, psychological and practical impact continues every day." There is also a statement from Attar Sharitha, who has supported the family since the death of Yubin. Yubin's mother and father have travelled from Nepal, and his mother read her moving statement to the court this morning. Part of her written statement reads as follows: "This incident has not only taken our son away, but has left us in a state of unrest. We feel extreme pain and an unimaginable sense of loss. We have felt it's something that we have to endure. My son had dreamed of further education and had come to the UK. He wanted to gain a degree from here because it is well recognised in the world. Unfortunately, this tragic event happened near our home while he was returning home from work." No sentence a court can pass can ever equate to a life lost. The life of a young man mourned by those who knew and loved him, and with so much ahead of him. Returning to the facts, the police arrive at your home address just before 4:30 a.m. on the Sunday morning. On arrest and caution, you make no reply responses. You ask the police what car you were meant to be driving, but at that stage the police did not say anything, just that you would be interviewed. You were told your house would be searched, and when you asked why, the police said they were looking for a car key. You spoke to your partner about what you called the Bimmer key, the BMW key, but when the police asked you for the BMW key, you made no reply. Your mobile telephone was seized. When the police searched your home, they found various documents for the BMW, including a notice of intended prosecution, the logbook and keys. At the police station, the drink and drugs drive procedure was completed. You were asked when you had last consumed alcohol, and you said at 9 o'clock, a Hennessy and Coke. From the documentation complete at the time of the process, you said nothing about any post-incident consumption of drink or drugs. The breath test procedure gave a lower reading of 45 micrograms of alcohol per 100 millilitres of breath, so the limit being 35. A drug swipe test showed a positive reading for cannabis. Later analysis shows some impairment at the time of driving, and obviously with both drink and drugs, the impact of those drugs may have been greater on you. When interviewed under caution, you made no comment responses to all questions. It is of note that when asked to explain why you had driven in a dangerous manner and whether there had been any distractions, you made no comment responses. In the initial basis of plea document, you set out the consumption of post-incident alcohol. As is clear from a reading of the joint report of the experts instructed by the prosecution and on your behalf, none of the accounts you've given could account for the measured evidential breath alcohol level, and all indicate you must have consumed more alcohol than you have declared. And from the calculations alone, it is not possible to say whether the missing alcohol was consumed pre-incident, post-incident, or a combination of the two. As I have set out in your addendum base of plea, you now accept a reading of a minimum of 45 micrograms of alcohol per 100 millilitres of breath at the time of the fatal collision. Turning next to your driving record and antecedents, you are now 41. There are a number of convictions recorded against you. They go back to 2000, when, aged 16, you were convicted of robbery. In 2001, for a number of driving offences committed in the September, October, November and December of 2000. Those offences including aggravated vehicle taking, dangerous driving, taking a vehicle without consent, driving other than in accordance with a driving licence, and driving without insurance. You received a detention and training order. In April 2002, for further driving offences, as well as burglary, you were the subject of a further detention and training order. In 2004 and 2005, for offence of driving whilst disqualified and driving whilst uninsured, you were initially made subject to a community order and then the subject of a suspended sentence order. There were breaches of that suspended sentence in 2006 and 2007. In 2010, for further offence of driving whilst disqualified and driving without insurance, that led to a community order and a further period of disqualification from driving. As is clear from the dates, all of those driving convictions are at least some 15 years ago, the most recent when you were 25. Turning next to the sentencing guidelines, the maximum sentence for dangerous driving is one of 2 years imprisonment. The maximum sentence for causing death by dangerous driving is one of life imprisonment. Within the relevant sentencing guidelines for causing death by dangerous driving, in terms of culpability, this was a prolonged, persistent, and deliberate cause of dangerous driving. Your driving was impaired by the consumption of alcohol, and in the period immediately before the impact, you were driving at a speed significantly in excess of the speed limit. In my judgment, this case comes within category A for culpability. On your behalf, that categorisation is accepted. Whilst there are 2 counts on the indictment, I need to have regard to your overall driving and your overall conduct. For an offence within category A, the start point for sentence is one of 12 years custody, the range 8 to 18 years custody. For the episode of dangerous driving before the fatal incident, your driving involves a series of deliberate decisions to flout the normal driving rules and a deliberate disregard for the safety of other road users. You brush the leg of a motorcyclist. You drive through numerous sets of traffic lights at red. You overtook other road users. You drove on the wrong side of the road, causing others to take evasive action, and you collided with another car. The footage shown as part of the hearing shows a quite appalling litany of incidents of dangerous driving leading up to the incident that leads to death. On the guidelines for dangerous driving alone, the factors identified place this offence into the highest category. As such, the start point on count 1 would be one of 18 months imprisonment and a range of sentence of between 1 and 2 years imprisonment. Next, moving to the aggravating factors. You have previous convictions for driving offences. Whilst they are some years ago, they cannot be ignored. On count 1, a motorcyclist and the pedal cyclist have to swerve to avoid you. You failed to stop having hit Mr. Ansari's car, and you may not have realised that you also made contact with Mr. Sagara. In relation to both counts, you were driving having consumed alcohol in excess of the legal limit. With count 2, causing death by dangerous driving, you failed to stop at the scene of a fatal crash, and whilst in your initial basis of plea, you have sought to suggest a reason for driving, as you did through fear or threat from others. I reject that feature of the matters put forward. I propose to impose concurrent sentences on the 2 counts here, and so there will need to be some upward adjustment to the notional sentence on count 2 to reflect the overall driving conduct. In terms of factors reducing seriousness or reflecting personal mitigation, I note your expressions of remorse. I have no doubt that the regret and remorse you have now expressed is entirely genuine. There are moving letters from many who know you and the many good things that you have done. Your partner and the mother of your 2 children speaks about the difficult start you had and how you have turned that around for good and the ways in which you have supported many others, giving talks in prison to motivate young men, and in your support for the homeless through your work in the music industry. Your mother speaks of the changes she has seen in you from your teenage years to you being a father yourself of your own children and your support of the wider family. Others, Jacan Prince, Cairo Miller, Nathan Clark, speak of your role as a mentor or guide to them, giving encouragement, support and motivation to them in their music. Laverne Cole speaks of the work you've done with the St. Christopher's Fellowship, and Cherie Jackson, parent director of the Akim Community Mime and Dance Group, sets up the physical and financial support you provided to that non-profit community group over a number of years. Timothy Pabifo speaks of the support and encouragement you have given to him. Your music has provided you with a following and with a significant financial reward, and I acknowledge that you have used both the music and the money it has given you to good effect and have done much to support many others. I've read very carefully the letter that you have written to me. In the letter, you express your genuine regret and remorse for your actions on the 18th of October 2025. As you set out, you've done much to help others over the last 10 years, and all that good work is marred by driving in drink and taking the life of another young man. You've pleaded guilty, and in my judgment, credit in the region of 25% is appropriate and will be given for those pleas of guilty, as well as a disqualification until an extended test is passed. There has to be a disqualification from driving and for a minimum period of 5 years. Turning next to mitigation. On your behalf, I have seen and read a sentencing note that has been prepared on your behalf. It is accepted that this is a Category A1 case, and with aggravating features that may have a starting point for sentence in double figures. It is submitted, the court may be able to reduce that sentence to within the single figure range. Through Mr. Aina, a full apology has been made and a full acceptance of the sequence of events in the course of your driving that evening that are clear aggravating features of the driving. As I have already said, a quite appalling litany of events. Mr. Aina also expresses your apology to the many others that you have let down. Your letter and those of the many who have written about you are ones that I have read and digested. Laverne Cole gave evidence in the course of this hearing to further highlight the work that you have done to assist those the St. Christopher's Fellowship supports with issues around the impact of their own offending behaviour. Those you met valued what you said about your own experiences. And in your letter to me, you state as follows: the dedication it took to establish myself professionally has not only shaped my character, but has also strengthened my ability to reach out to others and positively influence them. The career I have built reflects not only my commitment to self-improvement, but also my desire to make a constructive and lasting contribution to my community. I am committed to being a positive member of society and will continue to do my part in trying to create positive outcomes for young people in my community. Mr. Aina has highlighted some parts of the character letters that I have referred to. As I've said, it is very clear that you have done much to support others. But as I've also indicated, it is a real shame that all of that work has been impacted by your dangerous and ultimately fatal actions last October. Would you stand, please? On count 2, that's causing death by dangerous driving, applying the guidelines as set out, and making allowance for the aggravating and mitigating features identified, the sentence before plea would have been one of 16 years imprisonment. In my judgment, the aggravating features set out would take the sentence to the top of the identified range of sentence before the mitigating features identified then bring it down to the sentence that I've just indicated, making allowance for your plea of guilty, a sentence of 12 years imprisonment. On count 1, dangerous driving, a concurrent sentence of 15 months. Again, before plea on count 1, there would have been a sentence of 20 months, taking allowance for your plea, 15 months. Your licence will be endorsed with the particulars of the convictions for dangerous driving and causing death by dangerous driving. There will be an order for disqualification until you pass an extended driving test. In terms of disqualification from driving, the minimum period is one of 5 years, and here, in light of the facts and your previous driving record, a disqualification for 9 years. In light of the custodial period that I have imposed, there must be an extension period to that period of disqualification, and that has to be 2/3 of the custodial term I impose, as the custodial period is one of over 7 years. The extension period is one of 8 years. So there will be a disqualification from driving for a period of 9 years and an extension period of 8 years, making a total period of 17 years. On that sentence of 12 years, you will serve 2/3 of that term and then be released on licence for the remainder of it. Whilst on licence, you must comply with the terms of that sentence. At any stage, the licence may be revoked and your return to custody ordered. There will be an order that you pay the prosecution costs in the sum of £1,630, that sum to be paid within a month of today's date. If the statutory surcharge applies, the appropriate order may be drawn up. You may go down.